This is the DIY Artist Route and You podcast, walking and navigating the uncommon path for creative people in business, music, media, and more. I'm D. Grant Smith. The road often traveled is the one we see so many people on. It's the path of the herd, where everyone follows in the footsteps of whoever is in front, hoping that doing the trendy thing will produce positive results. Those of us, however, on the uncommon path are on a different road, often unpaved, unknown, wrought with challenges, but providing fulfillment in our passions. Thanks for joining me. My guest this time is Benji Rogers. He is the founder of PledgeMusic, the first music-centered crowdfunding platform that brings communities into the music creation process. Launched on the same day as Kickstarter, Benji and PledgeMusic are doing some truly amazing things in the creative music space to help DIY musicians and artists like you not only fund recording and music projects, but make community building the centerpiece of all of it. Benji is also a big proponent of music superfans, as am I. He and I discussed how musicians have to connect with their superfan group to be able to do anything that creates forward movement. He has some excellent ideas on how to better engage and build your superfans as well. I spoke with Benji by phone, and here is that conversation.
Thank you very much for having me.
Tell us a little bit about what PledgeMusic is. It compared to Kickstarter. Give us a little bit of a backstory.
Sure. So we launched in about 6.5 years ago out of the UK, and I'm now based in New York. And basically, we launched about 3 months apart from Kickstarter. And the concept really was, rather than just say to your fans, "Please fund my album," an artist would say, "Be a part of the making of my album." And from day one, you unlock access to a special part of the site where you can watch, early mixes, live tracks, demos, video, blogs, share the process of the making of the album. And in the end, a part of the profits can be given to a charity of the artist's choice. So very few of our artists, particularly our larger artists, say, "Please fund my album." What they in fact say is, "Pre-order my album and unlock." And we found that superfans tend to engage a lot more when they know that they're part of a longer-term process rather than just a short 30 or 40 days of funding. And we found that a lot larger artists and a lot more artists that may not feel comfortable publicly showing their financials wanted to work with us because they were not having to expose, how much their art was technically worth. So I have a huge amount of respect and admiration for the Kickstarter team and the company they built. It's amazing. And, for products and for tech software, I love it. I just think that for artists and for musicians, publicly showing that financial amount it's just uncomfortable for a lot of them. And I think also it can be distracting to the music making process. And so what I'd say is that the super fans that use Pledge are really there to watch something unfold, and their entry point, their pre-order is, signed vinyl, signed CD, test pressing, poster, T-shirt, handwritten lyric sheet, you name it. That's what they buy to unlock a process rather than just fund my album. And I don't want to simplify what crowdfunding is just that, but, again, what we see is that, we don't show financial targets. No one knows how much money is being raised, and yet we achieve similar financial metrics to crowdfunding, but no one sees them. So it's awesome for us. It's frustrating because we can't shout about, "Hey, here's our $1 million project." But, it's those are the breaks. And, and I've got as I said, a great deal of respect for Yancey and for his team at Kickstarter, who do amazing work too.
It sounds like from the way you've described this that really what you've done is built a community building platform for musicians, where it is in a sense about creating new product, but it's not about the money side of it as much as it is the community building side of it. And I want to ask you about that in just a second, but I'm curious. You mentioned that there's another component to PledgeMusic aside from raising money to help people or help artists do what it is that they want to do. You've got this charity aspect to it. What led to the inclusion of charity in or donation to charity in campaigns?
Sure. So basically, in 2004, I went to the Middle East and I did some work with refugees, attempting to help them, have their voices heard, and I was profoundly moved by that. And I came home and I made an album as an artist myself, and I gave a part of the profits from that album to Amnesty because I really admired them. And what occurred to me was that whenever I was an artist was asked to do something for a charity, I always would. And I found that most artists I knew had a charity that they loved, whether it be, to write "Love on Her Arms" or something for cancer research or something that they loved. And this convergence of a lot of times our artists are going to reveal early mixes, live tracks, demos, etc. And there's a very trusting atmosphere there. It's not just about getting the content and sharing it on the web, which is what happens everywhere else. And so the way I pictured this was an artist gets to make an album in the way of their choosing by engaging their superfans in this process. A fan gets to watch this unfold while it's all happening. Because so much more money is generated than regular sales, there's a bit that could potentially be left over to a charity, and therefore artist wins, fan wins, charity wins. Because at the end of the day, an artist may show up with a check for the charity for $50 or for $10,000 that wasn't there yesterday. And whilst we don't encourage it being used to kind of as a selling point, quote unquote, what I have found is that fans are willing to put in that little bit extra because they know it's going to do some good as well. And then if the charity chooses to get involved, amazing. So we've seen campaigns that are 100% for charity. Some campaigns are just a percentage of the goal is for charity. Some campaigns are a percentage of the whole thing. It's really personal to the artist, and it's not you don't have to. But we found when artists do it, and I think it's about 65% of artists do, it does definitely have a positive impact on financial bottom line, as well as make the world a slightly better place, which, I don't think we could ever go wrong in doing that.
Absolutely not. That's awesome. So, getting to the community building side of things, from what I've seen and what I've read about your platform, this is so much more about bringing people into the process of not only of creating the art, but of just being a part of community, more so than it is just fundraising. Was that at the heart of what you were trying to do instead of making a new crowdfunding platform, make a community building platform?
Absolutely. So I have this theory, right? So I'm a super fan, which means I'm basically a geek. And to me, I know I can get the end result of 99.9% of all artists' work on a streaming platform or on YouTube, right? So the end result, I don't have to worry about. It's free. If I want to buy it, I can, but ultimately all music is free, and I can just listen to it. What I can't get for free is the making of. And you don't have to give it all away, but if you do decide to open that, lift that lid just a little bit, then all of a sudden what you get is the magic, right? So artists tend to forget that what they do is fascinating to people who don't know how to do it. They tend to forget that there is an awe or a wonder about watching someone create. And, for any musician listening to this, how many of you have dug through YouTube videos to watch one of your favorite artists behind the scenes or in the studio? How many of you watch, documentaries about your favorite artists? Well, guess what? You will be one of those to somebody else one day. And people do dig and they do want to look and they do want to know more. So what the updates system does is allows fans access to that deeper layer while it's happening. It's like they said those things, VH1 behind the music. Well, imagine if that happened in real time. Imagine if you could watch it. And what it really did was it meant that these superfans would come together to celebrate the creation of something, not just the dissemination of something, which is what happens in traditional releases. So artists can choose to give as much or as little away as possible. Some of them want to remain mysterious and not show too much. Others want to show it all. And it's really about a personal connection. But the other thing that we do at Pledge is each artist that works with us can take away with them all of their data, email address, phone number. And the reason that's so important is they need to be able to go and sell tickets to those people. They need to be able to carry on their business and career outside of our platform. And they can't do that if, like Facebook or Spotify or whoever it is, those companies own all your data. So to me, this was a data play as much as anything. Each superfan they spend an average of $55 per transaction. Each superfan is your gold. They are your digital gold. They are the ones that value your business moving forward. Because the more of them you can reach, the more of them can participate, the more of them will share. That's your tribe. That's your community. And I love Seth Godin's expression, which is, to delight the weird, right? Your super fans are your weird ones. And I say that because I'm one of them. So to me, building a company of people who just wanted to fund stuff was not exciting. Building a community of people who wanted to celebrate and watch the music creation process as it unfolded, that was interesting because it's sustainable. Because it means that you can make that awkward second album and your fans will stay with you because they've bought it before they've heard it, and it's not dependent upon radio to break you. It's just literally you and your fans having this connection. And I also couldn't bear to watch artists just, with a shovel hand platforms like Instagram or Facebook or Spotify or iTunes all of their customer data and get nothing out the end of it other than, sales or streams. So this was an ecosystem play, and what I want for Pledge to become is the largest superfan community in the world, owned by the artists that bring their fans to the table. Because ultimately, we don't own those fans, the artist does. And so we have to do a good job on the technology side and on the customer service side to keep our artists happy, or else they will withdraw their fans and go somewhere else. And that's really at the heart of Arbit is this community of superfans, and now there are 1 million of them just hanging out there waiting for artists to put their music through. We built tools to help them cross-pollinate within the platform and to help find new music all the time.
That's awesome. You've it's almost like you've read what I was going to ask before you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. That means we're on the same page. That's a really good.
And
sign.
we're done.
It's really. No, you and I are both very, very big proponents of the whole concept of superfan, which is something that surprisingly more and more people don't know about. The work that I do with artists is describing what it is to have a core audience group of people that are very, very passionate about them and want to support them, like you said, every step of the way, not just at certain places. Since you're such a big proponent of the superfan ideal, and you consider yourself one in many ways, I consider myself one in many ways, what would you say to a musician who is trying to figure out who their superfan is and how they can find and build a core audience of superfans?
Sure. So there's a couple. Okay, the hard and fast one is this: if you're playing a club, the first people in the door, the ones that are always asking you when your new demos are coming out, the ones that are pushing you for information, that's your first indication. The second one, and this is where most, I would say 99% of artists fall down, is email list. And the number of artists who've pushed all their fans to third-party platforms at the expense of their email list is heartbreaking and shocking. If people at your shows want to communicate with you post-show and you want to communicate with them, there has to be a way to do that. Now, Facebook is one way, but then you have to pay Facebook. Twitter is one way, but then you have to pay Twitter. So those platforms' jobs are not to help grow your audience. Their job is to sell advertising, right? That's what they do. And you are the product as an artist. You are the product, and you are basically part of how they monetize. So what I believe is if an artist starts an email list, the people that want to be on that email list are going to be your super fans. Casual fans don't really sign up for that kind of thing unless they're looking for discounts. So you start it one show at a time, one performance at a time. If you've got music up on SoundCloud, make sure people can give you an email address to hear another song. If you've got music on Facebook, make sure that you're widgetizing on your website, for example, email in exchange for media. Use companies like NoiseTrade, to gather this email database, because in a funny way, tech companies value themselves on lifetime users, on the number of users that they have in their funnel. And what that means is how many users can they communicate with via email. which is your kind of lock-in point, right? And text messages to an extent too, but mostly email. And so artists, when you're growing your fan base, I say the primary building block is email list, and then it shows. Don't let anyone talk to you after a show unless they are signing your email list in some way, shape, or form. I'm saying that loosely, but like it should be your priority. If you've got 20 people in the room or 100 people in the room, and they have no way of giving you an email address, and you have no way of emailing them back, it's not their fault. And 9 times out of 10, the heartbreak to me when I watch a band live, thank you very much for so-and-so, and they walk off stage, and that's it. And there's no email list, and how are the fans supposed to communicate with them? What's the chosen model, And I think those are primary. And it begins with just, in my old band years ago, we had 4 clipboards. Each one of us had our names on it. And the person with the least number of names at the end of the night had to buy the bar tab. And that was pretty extensive in our band because we were party animals. So, that was how we did it, put it on oh, you've got 12 names. Oh, Robbie loses. His in the bar, But you got to think of it. And I'll tell you the other thing, too, is you build fan bases around things. And the creation of a new album or an EP or a live album or a tour or a reissue, these are events. And so if you say to fans, come along for the ride, sign up here, then you can take them on a journey. If you don't do that, they simply can't. And one of the strangest things about the music industry is, the music industry says, let's go away and make an album in secret. Let's emerge with a single somewhere, and then let's drop the album at the same time on the same day along with every other album and compete for audience there. It's literally like crazy. Whereas what the crowdfunding industry, or what most of it is, offer the product while it's being made, share in that creation process, which has all of the hallmarks of like a reality TV show, and then once it's done, offer it to everybody else. And Mark Mulligan from Media Research, he has a statistic where he says 17% of all music fans identify as superfans, but they make up for over 60% of all the revenue in the music business. So if you offer the superfan a stream of a song, that's all they can do. If you offer the superfan a listen on SoundCloud, that's all they can do. So if you offer them, what I find most artists do is they disappear, they do all this magical stuff in the background, and then show up and say, buy it now or stream it now, versus we're making a new album, come along for the ride. And again, there's just more money in doing it the other way. It's just the music industry tends to be a little slow on that uptake. So, but we're getting there. Won't be too much longer.
That's good. I was going to ask you what you think with the changes that Spotify in particular and Apple Music and music streaming as a whole has had on the music industry. What do you see as the next bend in the road for musicians after crowdfunding and these digital distribution streams?
I think it depends. To me, you don't use Spotify to make money. That's not what it's designed for. It's a social network. It's another social network, and you should play with it and you should use it, but it should not be your primary port of call. It's superfans first, everybody else later. And the nice part is the superfans will also stream it on Spotify or Apple Music with Deezer or whichever one they choose to use. And I'm very for and pro streaming. We will access our music through streaming portals in the future. That's what it looks like. The payment structures are still a mess and a wreck, and they need to be worked on. And thank goodness there are some incredibly smart people working on those solutions right now. And the rights holder strangleholds over the technology that's being built are painful to watch, but that's just where we are. And I think that the good news is that through use of blockchain technology, which is what powers the Bitcoin, I think we're going to see a whole bunch of new technologies that will assist content creators and especially artists and musicians in getting extraordinary transparency in their payments and also more payments, even if they be micro. At scale, I think it will add up to a huge amount. So we're in a phenomenally exciting time to be a musician. But you can get a whole bunch of stuff wrong, when you're deploying your music career, just don't underestimate the power of what your super fans will do if you let them. That'll be the main thing.
You mentioned a minute ago radio and not trusting it entirely to be the thing that grows you. And even though I'm in radio, I happen to agree with what you're saying. I'm curious what you feel to be the role that indie radio or public radio has in kind of this ongoing changing dynamic in the industry with artist audience growth.
Yeah, I mean, the way I would say is radio. Don't get me wrong, radio is a part of it. Like it's still a primary means of discovery, whether it's online or terrestrial, and it's still absolutely valid way of going. It's just, again, you should fund your album with your super fans and let their money take it to radio for everybody else. And then you will create new super fans in that process. People want to come to where the party is. They want to be a part of the tribe, and I think that's, so I still get recommendations from KCRW out of LA whenever it's one of my great joys of landing in Los Angeles and hitting play in the car and hearing it in real time. And that still feels good to me, And so I think that, again, it's a tool in your tool set. As an artist, you should use it. And if you can afford to, well, first of all, if you can't afford it and you haven't done a campaign that involves your super fans, it's not, you probably can't afford it. So I've seen it work wonders, and particularly if you get picked up by trusted stations, it makes total sense. Podcasting now, obviously, is becoming a huge piece of this conversation, and I've certainly seen when I do podcasts or when artists I know do podcasts, they definitely see traction out of it. It's that, again, content rules, and I think that if you can make a ton of mistakes in the way that you deploy your art, X, Y, and Z, but if you stick to the fundamentals of where do super fans listen, where are people that are going to go deeper? The people listening to your podcast want to go deeper, right? So your job as the host is to provide people that will do that. So I think it's still a huge piece of the puzzle. But again, it just starts with the super fans are more than likely to scream and shout about what's great if you let them than the casual fans who discover it for 5 minutes, then walk away, find the next thing. Nothing wrong with either, just better to have both. Well,
I want to have a hallelujah choir in the background as you're saying all this stuff, man, because it's the gospel truth. Thank you so much for being with us on this podcast, Benji. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Benji Rogers, founder of PledgeMusic, a direct-to-fan music platform which brings artists and fans together to share in the experience of music as it happens. Get more info and start your campaign at pledgemusic.com. And you can follow Benji on Twitter at Benji K. Rogers. Benji is spelled Benji. The DIY Artist Route and You podcast is a part of my coaching and mentoring for artists, entrepreneurs, and creatives who want to take your skills, talents, and interests and turn them into profitable careers. For more information, free PDF guides, and a full archive of episodes of the DIY Artist Route and You, go to dgrantsmith.com. Let's talk about your uncommon path. What's an area of the uncommon road that you'd like some clarity or help with? Reach out to me directly at dgrantsmith.com and we'll chart your course together. Music from this episode from Timothy Palmer, a song called Tryin' from his album The Half Boy. Get more information on Timothy's amazing songwriting at facebook.com/Timothy Palmer Music. Thanks for joining me. I am D. Grant Smith for the DIY Artist Route and You podcast. Share this route with your friends via Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, email, and more. Share links are below. Keep carving your uncommon pathway, my friend. We'll meet up again soon.